Hold your hand when I say this. I didn't before, but I'm doing it now. But your toxic parent is never going to take accountability. They're not going to apologize and they're not going to change. Okay?
Welcome to Let's Glow with Nini. I'm Nini. Let's get straight into this video.
I'm so envious of people who are able to have like great relationships with their parents, almost like they're best friends. It's not even in like a jealous way. It's more so like I wish I had that. I know I could make that happen, but I just can't. And I thought as I was getting older that, they would be able to understand my thoughts and feelings more and understand that if I'm saying something is wrong or something needs to change on their part, they still don't get it. I fully believe in holding on to your parents tight. Like anyone who's older, your parents are usually like double, triple your age when you're in your 20s. So it's like you want to hold on to them tight. You want to keep a good relationship with them because you never know what could happen to them. And they never know what could happen to us. Like we never know what could happen to us. So you never know when that relationship could end. But at the same damn time, I fully believe in protecting my own energy and ensuring that I don't have people in my life who are constantly trying to drain me or constantly trying to grind my gears. But when it's your parent, it makes it so difficult. I've never had that type of relationship with my parents where we like hug, kiss, say I love you all the time. Never had that anyway. But as I was getting older, I'm like, damn, I kind of want that. It's like, damn, why can't I have that relationship with mine? And trying to figure that out and talking to a therapist, whatever it may be, I just realized that some people aren't going to change, and there's never going to understand that what you're saying may be true, no matter how old you get, no matter how long or how many times you tell them, they're not going to get that something they're doing is bothering you or is wrong. That can apply to any relationship. And when it gets to that point, it just feels necessary to distance yourself. And I hate that because who wants to distance themselves from someone or people that they love? But it's like at the same time, I have to protect myself. But I mean, I know I can't be the only one who has like this type of strained relationship with my parent. It feels almost unnatural because I have so many friends who have great relationships with their parents, talk on the phone with them all the time, yada, yada, yada. I've just never had that. And it sucks, but I just know I'm not the only one.
If you have been no contact with your mother, no matter how long it is, I don't care if you just cut her off yesterday, keep her cut off. Don't call her. It's not worth it. She has not changed. You are not going to get the response that you are looking for. She is not going to heal that wound. She is not. No, that hug, you're not going to get it. Nope, actually. You need to be a radical thinker and understand that you're not ever going to get what you want out of that relationship. Sorry, somebody had to tell you. And luckily, you scrolled and found this video. You're welcome.
I went snowboarding today with a new friend that I made. And I feel like it's always like whenever I meet like new people, it's always like really strange when the topic of family comes up. Kind of strange for me, strange for them, because I'm pretty much estranged from like my whole entire immediate family. So whenever they're like, what's your relationship with your mom like? What's your relationship with your dad like? I'm always like, do I give them the short story or do I give them the long story? Do I make up the truth or am I honest? And I've tried to do a lot better about just generally kind of like being honest. But I hate it, not for me, but because I always get like a similar reaction. So whenever I'm like, yeah, like my dad's never been in my life and me and my mom have like a terrible relationship and I actually haven't talked to my mom in like 7 years. And if you've also went in no contact with your parents, you can probably relate. But it's just like you can kind of like see the look on their face. And I'm like, I'm not trying to make this awkward, but I also don't want to lie, give you some bullshit answer. Like I'm trying to give you the truth. And then they're like always like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, damn, I normally don't be thinking about it, but what am I really missing on if everybody who still talks to their parents, like, give me this type of reaction, but I'm never talking to my mom again.
You know what's really hard about being no contact with your mom, but also still talking with our family that we have? My grandpa only grandparent that I have left on her side. I don't speak to any of my dad's family recently, but my grandpa just called me knowing that I'm no contact. Granted, he's getting up there. He's in his late 80s now, and he is like forgetting things every now and then, but he knows that her and I are not talking. He just called me out of the blue, which granted, I went to go visit him last week because I'm like, you know what? My grandpa's not getting any younger. Me and my youngest went to go visit him. And we had a good time, brought him McDonald's, like we stayed over there, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, fast forward to today. He just called me and said, call your mom. I haven't spoke to her in 15 months. I'm no contact for my mental health. And I'm just like confused. I'm just like, no, we're not talking. I told you that. Well, she's going through some things right now. I think it would make her feel really good if she heard your voice. You have to let the past go. That's the hard part about being no contact with your parent and still speaking with the rest of the family, and they just don't want to get it. Like, I'm like, no, I respect you, Grandpa, and I want to have a relationship with you, but I'm not talking to her. He just got kind of quiet, and I just said, all right, well, if there's nothing else, talk to you later. Bye.
My video about estranged parents has a lot of estranged parents very deep in their feels, and it has a lot of them showing exactly why their children want absolutely nothing to do with them. The comments that I have received from parents whose children have gone no contact with them are eye-opening, but really not at all. It's no surprise that your children want no contact with you. And this person is saying they know deep down, but have to keep up their lie. So here's some of the things that people have said to me on that video. Such BS. You're talking about two separate things. Trauma compared to a ridiculous fad. If you don't tell the parent why, then you are just a controlling jerk. You are so one-sided yourself. My mother beat me with objects and I was never estranged. Even though she was mean and controlling, I spent every single holiday with her. My kids don't host any holidays. Oh, here's a really good one. Shittiest, most rotten, worthless post ever. Come on. Do you even think twice before posting? This is horrible. This post is a shame. Get a grip, lady. You are certainly a failure looking for likes. Here's another one. She had to post twice. She's that much in her feels. You are so wrong. There is two sides, honey. Shame on you. Karma. We're going to get back to karma in a minute. Only kids that go no contact lack good communication, forgiveness, compassion, and understanding. I actually don't like who my daughter has become. I don't want her in my life. Such disrespect, terrible human being. I could never do that to my parents. Shame on. So I'm not going to call people out by names, and there's more. But this last person, who told me about karma and who doesn't like who her daughter has become, that's fine. Just know that you are probably going to go on to your reward completely alone. And I hope your daughter isn't your only last surviving kin, because the hospital will call your daughter and tell your daughter that you've gone on to your reward, and your daughter will say, yes, thank you, I'll make arrangements. And 4 days will go by and no arrangements will be made. And at that point, the morgue will call the daughter several times over, and the daughter will not take the call. And eventually, because the morgue doesn't have room, your body will go to the state anatomy board. There will be no obit. That's it. That's karma.
Have you ever been talking to somebody and realized that they are the problem? I was talking to this woman and she was telling me how her kid went no contact with her because she took the grandchild to the baby dad's house that they're also no contact with. She says that she don't feel like the mom should be able to dictate that relationship and that the child should form that relationship on their own and find out for themselves. He should still have a relationship with him even though he's inconsistent, a bad dad, he doesn't take care of him. But I understand the mom's side because why would you want an inconsistent dad in their life? But what I don't understand, and it really confused the hell out of me, is why would you, as someone that's not the parent, think that you have any say-so? How can you tell the mom that she don't have no say-so, but you got say-so and you the grandma? Like, how you gonna do something with somebody else's kid, and it's not your kid, and then you gonna sit here and say, I don't think it's that big of a deal? You don't think it's that big of a deal that you did something with somebody else's child without their permission? You don't think that's that big of a deal? And now you telling me, bitch, a stranger.
I just saw a creator posted a video talking about the fact that when people go no contact with their family members, specifically they were talking about parents, it's not because of something that happened to them when they were 11. It's because of repeated continues of patterns of behavior from their parents. And that resonated with me really hard because I had an abusive childhood and I'm no contact with a lot of my family. And a lot of them walk around and make it seem like I'm just bitter and miserable for things that happened in my childhood that happened 20, 30 years ago. And that couldn't be any further from the case. Yes, those things happen. They had lasting impacts on me and I was mad about them for quite some time. I'm not gonna lie about that. But I spoke to most of my family well into my 20s, so it was not something that was happening to me when I was 15. Rather, every single body that I cut off, I cut them off because I had a eureka moment after an active engagement with them. Like, when I say that, I mean like I'm actively engaging in conflict or conflict resolution with them, and I had a eureka moment where I realized this person is never gonna change. Nothing is ever going to be different with this person. Who they were when I was 11 years old and who they are now is the same person. And while they cannot manhandle me the same way because I'm no longer a child, if I'm going to have a relationship with this person, I have to be willing to subject myself to constant disrespect and being manhandled. And I decided that I didn't want a relationship with them that bad. It makes them feel better to tell themselves it's because I'm bitter and I'm holding on to the past, but they are the same exact person when I was 11 years old that they are today. They have not changed. They're not going to change. And that was the realization that I had to come to. It's not what happened to me at 15. It's what happened to me at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. For all the years that I'm in contact with you, I keep having the same experience. And it was my own mother who taught me that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different response. At some point, it is insane to continue engaging with these people and expect anything different from them.
This is for my besties who are no contact with their parents, or people who would like to be no contact with their parents. You know the burning question of like, how am I going to feel when my parent dies? Well, do I have news for you? I have been no contact with both of my parents for years. And my dad just died 2 months ago. So, let's talk about what I have learned so far. Actually, for a little bit of context, I've been no contact with my father up until 2018. And then between 2018 and now, we have had varying levels of contact, but it has always been like limited and like distanced for various reasons. But the first thing I'll say is that it is so weird experiencing this new kind of grief, because you know when you're no contact with your parents, you have to grieve them while they're still alive, and that is the most complicated shit that like nobody is gonna understand unless you're going through it. Like, it's just new levels of weird. And I think when I was grieving my parents when they were still alive, or when my dad was still alive, it was more so like, you know, I'm grieving the fact that like I'm never gonna have the parents that I wish I had. I'm never gonna have, you know, that kind of relationship like that I see other people have. They're never gonna be supportive of me the way I need them to. They're never gonna be emotionally available, mature, blah, blah, blah. Or they can't be that for me currently. However, there's always been this like, you know, way deep down feeling of like, if they ever got their shit together, like if they ever became safe people for me to have a relationship with, I would accept them with open arms. I just can't do that shit while they are who they are currently. And that's just, you know, a little seedling of hope that I've always had, like as I've been no contact. And so now what I'm grieving is that will truly never happen. There's no possibility for it to happen anymore. And that is a completely different feeling. And that shit does suck. I'm not gonna lie. I will say it's also very weird to have so many people like validating your grief, because you know you lost a parent in a way that is like socially acceptable and that like people can understand and like people have a universal experience with. Whereas when you cut your parents off, you know, there's a lot of projecting, there's a lot of people trying to tell you what to do and like, oh well, you know, they're your parents, blah blah blah, all these things. And like it's very weird as somebody I've been no contact. I started going no contact, like I started with my mom. It's been 10 years now. I have had to fight for my decision to do this for the entire time that I've been no contact. And so I don't really need the validation anymore. And I don't argue with people. I don't explain myself about like why, like, you know, I don't have to be in contact with somebody who's like abusive. But it's so fucking weird to have people now just kind of like validating me, I guess, and like really, even though I'm not saying anything new. I'm not saying anything new about my grievances with my father, about my complicated relationship with my father, you know, but everybody is just like really validating this grief for me. It's very strange. The other thing is that because my father has passed now, I have been able to like let this like wall of anger down. And that's something I didn't even know how heavy that shit was for me, because I have had to protect myself with that anger my entire life. Because I love my parents. I have always loved my parents, especially my dad. I was a daddy's girl down growing up. But, you know, because I have always seen the humanity in my parents, I know that like if I let my guard down with how harmful they have been to me, like they will take advantage of that. They will manipulate that. They will not respect me and my boundaries. Like, you know, they are not safe people. They have never been safe people. And so I built this wall of anger, and like I was very firm. I was very stiff. I was very mean. Like I just did not play. Like I don't play. And everybody in my family knows that I don't fucking play. But I had to be that, because if I soften myself, that would give them the opportunity to be harmful to me again. And I just couldn't fucking do it. But now that, you know, it's weird to say, but like I'm safe. I'm emotionally and physically safe because my dad passed. I'm finally allowed to really access those soft feelings that I have always had for my father, because nothing's gonna happen to me if I soften up. And that, fuck. And it really is freeing to allow myself to feel that way, because I have just been this angry person for so long. But I had to be. I really did. The other thing about going through this grief is that, not for nothing, I stand 10 toes behind my decision to go no contact with my parents. And my father dying really only solidified that for me, which I never expected. Because the reality is, no matter how many feelings and memories and all these things that are coming up for me because he's passed, that does not change who he was to me when he was alive. That doesn't change anything. And, you know, my parents decided that it was not their responsibility to keep me safe. It was not their responsibility to be safe people for me, which means I had to decide for myself that I was going to keep me safe, and that I was going to protect me, and that I was going to do everything that I can that is in my best interest and in the best interest of little me. And with both of my parents behaving in these very harmful, toxic, fucked up ways, they were simply not people that I was safe around. And so it was my responsibility to get myself away from them. And that shit does not change. That shit does not change no matter how many complicated feelings and thoughts and memories are coming up for me. The last thing that I want to share about my experience is that I would not have the community that I have around me today that is holding me while I'm going through this like monumental grief and loss had I not gone no contact with my parents. The only reason I experience the love and kindness and care that like my friends and like my community and loved ones show me is because I decided to let go of the relationships that were telling me that these relationships couldn't exist. Right? Because these were my first relationships. My parents were my first relationships. And I had spent so much of my life trying to chase this very conditional love and having these like really fucked up beliefs about
about loving other people, about how lovable I am. And I just would not be able to have the support that I have today if I didn't stop chasing that with them. Anyway, this shit still high-key sucks, and I'm still very much going through it. But those are the thoughts that I have 2 months in.
Hey everyone, I have been seeing all of these videos here on TikTok from the mother's perspectives and the adult children's perspectives, all about going low contact or no contact with your parents, and the parents feeling like their kids have just kind of dumped them. I have so many thoughts and opinions about what's trending right now, and I think that this is something that, of course, I'm getting the algorithm, so it's all I'm seeing in these videos, and I feel like, wow, this is so much of what I have done and what I still do in my practice. So for those of you who don't know me, I've been counseling people for 30 years. I've been working with teenagers since 1997. So this is almost 30 years of counseling teenagers, individuals, family therapy, couples work. So I've done a lot of this work, and I've heard these conversations that so many of you are presenting with here on TikTok about your relationships with mostly your mothers, maybe your mother-in-law, your dad, your father-in-law. And I now am at the age where I have 5 adult children, and I have 2 daughters who are in their late 20s, and one is turning 30. And I understand what it's like to be a mother and to think about how you raise your kids and why they're acting the way that they're acting now, and they're not being loyal. And I've done everything I can for them. I, went to all their games. I, participated in the PTA. I was there at pick up on time. I did all the things. And I hear that. But I think that what's missing, not from everybody, but from some of the moms who are my age talking about their adult children, is, in a way, for your adult kids, that stuff doesn't matter. That's a given. Those are the things we're supposed to do. That's what we signed up for when we decided to become parents. Yeah, you go to the baseball games, you participate and snack, and you take your kids out of state to the volleyball tournaments. That's what we do. I think a lot of what these adult children are talking about is emotional availability, and it's us realizing that our children are changing. So emotional availability, and I listened to this. I remember 25 years ago when I worked in eating disorders, and my eating disorder clients would talk about, in a clinic, in a hospital, and they would talk about how their parents don't listen, they're not there for them, they dismiss them, it's all about them, my mom's in a bad mood. I've listened to this time and time and time again, and I'm hearing it now with these women who are in their, millennials and some Gen Zers talking about, I think it's emotional availability. It's not so much, you may have done all of those wonderful things for your kids, but listen to what they're trying to tell you. And I know it's hard. I'm Gen X. I was raised in a different generation, like many of you. Like, we had thoughts and feelings and opinions about our parents, but we kind of sucked it up. We didn't say anything because many of us were not in therapy then. Therapy wasn't a thing. You all are. The younger people are much more therapy savvy today. They have more emotional intelligence than many of us had. We were 22, 25, 30 years old. And when things made us mad with our moms and dads and our in-laws, we did just suck it up. We grinned and bared it. We went to Christmas Eve, we went to Thanksgiving, we went to all the events we didn't want to go to, and you all are doing it differently. And I applaud you for that. I think it's actually really amazing, and I'm very much in support of all of my clients who are doing this, my therapy and coaching clients. So I think that, one thing that as mothers is that we've got to move with the times. Our kids are different. Our kids have changed. You got to move with them. And if they're talking to you about something that you did that you don't remember, but listen to them, something you did or you said or the way they felt when they were younger, suck it up and listen to them. Humble yourself, eat humble pie, and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right? If you want to be relevant and you want to be in their lives and you want to be somebody that they come to, don't give them sour milk. If you're going to give them sour milk, what do? You don't want that. Give them some honey. Give them tea with honey in it. It's like, oh, this is wonderful. You want to bring them to you, and you're not going to do that by telling them that this is how it is, and I was a good parent to you. Yeah, you probably were a great parent in many ways, but there's something that they're telling you, they're reaching out to you for you to listen to them now. It's different now for them, okay? So say you're sorry. That's the number one thing I would say, because this is very nuanced. I know many of you are going to say, well, it was this way and it was that way, and you're not right about this, you're not right about that. No, because I don't know you, you're not my client, and this is a social media platform. But what I am saying is that I think parents, we need to accept our children today where they're at. You don't have to love what they're doing. You don't have to love their girlfriend, their boyfriend, your in-law child, but it's important that you learn to accept them where they're at. And I know it's nuanced for the parents here too, because sometimes, and I've had the parents in my office, and I've had them talk about, and I've met their young adult child, and I'm like, all right, well, I can kind of understand. And as I've gotten to the family and that adult, like young adult child, I realized that there could be some features here of a personality, maybe not a disorder, but a personality issue. And I can kind of understand why that adult mom is having a hard time with that kid. It's nuanced. It's a case-by-case basis. So it's hard to listen to all of the comments and everybody posting on TikTok, and none of us can say anything. You can't diagnose your parent. Parents, you can't diagnose your kids. The only person who can do that is a licensed mental health professional. So please keep that in mind, because I hear narcissistic all the time. You don't know that somebody has, a narcissistic personality disorder. That's like less than 2% of the population. There could be narcissistic features, but I find that a lot of people don't even really know what narcissistic features are. A little bit more I hear about borderline. We don't know, okay? So I would just caution everybody to be careful of the words that we're throwing around, because we're weaponizing these words, and it's really damaging when we hear it, especially if you have a family member or friend who's watching this on TikTok. They're being affected by it because they're watching you, all right? So all that to say is that mostly to the adult parents out there, because my heart goes out to these I say kids, but these 20, 30-year-olds, these millennials and Gen Zers. Say you're sorry and be willing to listen and eat humble pie. I just had, over the holidays, I was stressed out about something with all the kids coming over, and my daughter was giving pushback on something, the one who's, in her early 30s. And I said to her, I was just frustrated. I said, no, this is what we're doing. You come over, you do it at this time. And she was so mad at me. She's like, fine. And we hung up the phone, and she came, and I gave her a hug, and she was like, Mom. And I was like, she was like, I'm really mad at you. You can't talk to me that way. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I was stressed out. I really messed up. And she said, I'm 30 years old. You can't talk to me that way. I'm not 10. She's absolutely right. So I said, I'm sorry. And I need to do better. I need to make changes. And I needed to have a little bit of a kind of a come to Jesus meeting with myself. I did something similar to like that to my other daughter who's in her late 20s. I make mistakes. I'm screwing up. I'm a therapist and a life coach. I have these skills, but I'm also a mom. And sometimes when you're a mom, it can go a little bit out the window. And I wanted to keep these traditions. I wanted it to be a certain way because we've been doing this for so many years. They want to do it different. And I have to listen to that. They have opinions. Their opinions and their thoughts are just as important as mine. And I have to listen. And that's what I did. Something similar happened with my daughter many, many weeks ago, the younger one. And I was wrong. We got a huge fight, and then I had to call her back. And I apologized. We talked it out, and I will never do that again. Because none of us is perfect. But I think one thing that I have learned from decades of listening to mothers, to listening to teenagers, is learning to say you're sorry. And if they want you to go to therapy, go to therapy. Put your defenses down. Be willing to listen to another opinion. And think about taking action, changing your behavior. Now, there will be people who will never do that. And if that's your mother and they just will shut it down, I feel for you. And I've seen that before. And, we call those cut-off relationships. You may, or you all call it the no contact. You may need to cut it off if they're not willing to look at themselves at all and to look at their part in the story, okay? So this message really is for the parents out there. Please be willing to take a look at yourself, go inside and see what can I do to amend this relationship. And if you're the millennial or the Gen Z, think about making changes if you need to make changes too, because no contact is a really big deal. You may regret it in 10, 20, 30 years, and I don't want that for you, okay? I'm all about healing relationships. Get help, get outside help, get professional support. You all deserve it.